Bruce, welcome back to the Gull Lake Boat Show.
Thank you. Always great to be here.
It's been an eventful year for you. You've got, now first of all, let's talk about what's going on today. What brings you to a show like this, Bruce? You and your new growth.
Well, you can't pass up an opportunity to see a gathering of such wonderful boats as you see here. There's no place in the world that has these kinds of boats offered to the general public. And we try to support this because a lot of these people here also support the Legacy of the Lakes Museum. So it's a tradition that we bring up Stella, a 1907 fan bow and launch, and Darren is down there giving rides. So please, folks, if you're interested in a ride, head to the left when you get down to the docks and hang out by Stella, and you'll go for a very interesting ride in a 1907 24-foot fan bowen with a huge 10-horse Kermath engine that just puts along.
That boat should have gull wing doors. It's such a time machine. Now, you mentioned it here real quick. You've had some adjustments in the last year at the museum, now the Legacy of the Lakes Museum. Let's talk a little bit about what's been changing down there.
Well, we were previously called the Minnesota Lakes Maritime Museum, and the maritime word kept throwing a lot of visitors off. So we took a look at what we're displaying for folks, how we want to honor our guests when they come in, what kind of touch points we can offer them. So we came up with, after a long process, came up with Legacy of the Lakes. So that touches everybody. We all have lake memories. We all enjoy the Minnesota Lakes culture. We all enjoy our 10,000 treasures that we have, and we all come at it from different directions. So it might be a family campfire, it might be staying in a little cabin, it might be fishing with a 5-horse Johnson, it might be a beautiful mahogany boat or a fiberglass boat. So that's what we're trying to cover, all the different touch points that people have that relate to lakes. Boats being the main thrust, but there's a lot of other things that we're touching.
Speaking of some of those other things, clearly we're talking a lot of boats today at the boat show, but like you touched on, the Legacy of the Lakes as a museum and also as just pop culture and lakes culture goes is a lot more than just the boats. Landmarks along the shore, boathouses, and a lot of those old ones have been disappearing, but a lot of them have been making a bit of a comeback, whether they've been being restored or you're talking about an old grand resort that is still a resort or maybe now being sold off into individual cabins, lakeside hotels. How does the Legacy of the Lakes Museum touch base with some of those other structures, the kind that don't always float?
Well, we talk about the history of living on the lakes and how people came to enjoy the lakes. It might have been the grand hotels in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It might have just been a very rustic family cabin quite recently with minimal additions to the place, you know, and how that's changed. So we talk about the little old mom and pop resorts. We talk about the Grand View hotels. We talk about the Rutgers hotels. We talk about hotels all over the country that people has led them to have lake experiences.
When you hear the word lakes culture, to you yourself, Bruce Olson, what immediately springs it, not to your mind, to your heart?
Well, it brings back memories when Dad won a raffle ticket that was a 2.5-horse champion motor, and we'd throw in the back of our 53 Chevrolet and go up to Lake Rachel and rent this pontoon that was made of barrels, 55-gallon barrels welded together with a railing with chicken wire around it. That's where I go.
That's called a rig, not even a boat. That's called a rig. So you've got, speaking of the Legacy of the Lakes Museum, and one of the things you've touched on also is how the times change. Things have changed, buildings have come and gone, boats have come and gone, and they start to make a bit of a comeback. That's something that you touch on at the Legacy of the Lakes Museum also, and not just in times of history, but in the fact that there's always something different. From one year to the next, one thing's being removed and being replaced by something else. How do you keep history young again?
Well, that's one of the things we take pride in, changing at least 30% of the exhibits every year. For example, this year you'll walk in and you'll see something we call the Dream Boat section, and that is homemade individual boats. It might be something somebody made in their garage, it might be in the granary, it might be a kit boat, it might be a school shop project, but to them it was their dream and they made that dream happen, so we honor that. Also, we rotate exhibits. Last year we did something with the University of Minnesota, Brandenburg, his 90-day shoot in the Boundary Waters. Beautiful stuff. This year we're cooperating with the Smithsonian Institute, X-ray vision. It's called the skeletal approach to fish from all over the world. It's kind of a science art exhibit. We have a Japanese form of painting fish, a local artist does, so we're changing things up. And we can go right through the museum and talk about how things change. We're added to the fiberglass exhibits, expanded that, some things that are beautiful, some things that didn't quite work, you know, but they're all bright colors, shiny fiberglass, and very eccentric. So a helicopter boat that never will be near water or never is functional, but it was used to unveil a new Evinrude four-cylinder engine. We go on to Minnesota boat builders, this year honoring Larson Boat Works, and how they started building duck boats, went into wood boats, made the transition to fiberglass boats, and they're still a major part. Minnesota was a big deal in boating in the whole country, because we had some major producers that are still in business that made it possible for average folks to take advantage of these lakes. I mean, you didn't have to live on a lake. You could have this boat parked next to your house, have a trailer hitch, and you could take the whole family down the road and enjoy the lake treasures and the lake culture. So, I'm sorry. As we've traveled on further, we're really blessed this year to have a cooperation with Lee and Penny Anderson. They have 5 of their beautiful boats down there, and what a dramatic change. He is a historical collector, and these are significant boats that are just jaw-dropping and set in a very nice venue. It's a wonderful thing for our guests.